All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. It looks like we have a pretty good group of people in here today. My name is Jeremy, one of the technical trainers here on the training team. I'm here to run our Lunch and Learn today. If we have any questions, I don't believe I saw any pre-submitted questions today. So if you have any questions, please provide them in the chat or in the Q&A, and I will be happy to um, discuss. All right. All right, we've got a few questions coming in now, so we can go ahead and start talking about those. All right. First question, we got a question from Marvin about just general best practices for organizing large numbers of projects in version 9. Okay, so if we're looking at, right, let's say we have a bunch of projects in version 9. Some of it's just going to be partially up to you, in your kind of process, what you want to organize, how many projects you want, considering those kinds of things, involved in that, right? Because if you're making a bunch of these projects, um, you'll always want to, keep in mind is like, what is the actual project that I want to make? Um, do I need this many projects? That kind of thing. The more you're making, obviously, the more this is going to fill up with extra projects and things. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind if you're trying to organize this, right? Do I actually need this to be a project? Like that kind of thing. Um, Organizing, I think initially, any project that you set is going to appear in this list as in alphabetical order, I believe. It's just going to read the string for the title and place it there. So if you have certain orders that you want it to contain, like you want certain projects to appear up top or anything like that, you have to consider that. So maybe, putting numbers in front of certain projects that you want to appear towards the top, like, making this 1.0 purchase request project or something, or just, something like that. It could be one thing to do. And there's also some things like the pin. If you pin a project, it'll actually appear in this sidebar here. So if there's certain projects that you're utilizing more than others, you can pin it to the side and you'll actually be able to just instantly access the project from the side. So if I need to access my project, I can, just jump over here and now I can open my project immediately. Obviously you'd want to use that sparingly and it's going to put the image on the side here. So I think my example image here is pretty bad because I can't see it very well. But so maybe design that a little bit with that in mind. If you have something that you're utilizing more than others, or maybe like your main project or something like that that you're focusing mostly on, you can throw it in there, um, and stuff like that as well. Um,
Jeremy, if you don't mind me jumping in,
yeah, sure.
there is one other little like best practice tip that we offer. If you have a lot of resources that are used amongst different products or different projects, um, we recommend keeping all of those in their own separate project. So you just have one project that's dedicated to things that are used in a bunch of different places. That way you can just build a single dependency between your main project that's relying on those resources and the project that's containing those resources. And that way other projects can also get access to them without ending up in kind of messy loops.
Yeah, right. Very good point. This especially useful um with like deploying between repo and stuff like that. Right. This one project that if it's meant to be global resources, right, and then you can put a large, a number of various resources in here that are shared across these projects. Then if I'm, then I don't have to worry about, 10 different projects in here. Maybe I can fit a bunch of these resources in global resources and I only need a few projects. And then when I set up my dependencies, I can just make my project dependent on my global resources project. And then that's one easy way to kind of keep track of that thing as well. I know I don't I'm assuming it might not have been added or included in here, but I know in some places within folders you can adjust like the order of something. Like if I want certain items to appear at the top, I can change the order, but it looks like I don't have the ability to do that. Well, I don't know if that was just in version 8 that I could do that. It used to be one of the settings you can set the order so it would appear in a certain order, but that might not be a process in projects. I can also allow you to talk if you had any like expansion or I guess further question to add to that if you need or clarification if you wanted to add more or
Sure.
kind of understand more.
At our educational institution, I mean, we've got different silos of information. And usually those different pieces of information don't talk with the others under normal circumstances. And I can see where each one of those instances may have their own group of process flows. And I mean, I could just see this getting rather large and without any kind of organizational structure other than naming convention. I see that list getting long in a hurry.
Hmm.
That's the reason I was hoping there might be a way to maybe put projects in a folder.
Understandable. Yeah. Um,
And you know, if you had 10, 15, that's one thing. But long term, I don't see that being the case. You know,
right.
we're only working on our first, project to go into production, but long term, I see that expanding, rather, rather largely. So that's the reason we're asking these questions, now, before we get into a situation where, wow, we didn't do a good job of organizing our projects.
Right.
Whereas in the old way, you could kind of put things in folders. And I get the point of the projects. I get that completely. And, putting common stuff in its own project, that's great. But when you've got different silos of information that may or may not talk to each other, just from an organizational standpoint, it's just going to be a lot easier if there was a way to do that. But obviously not, other than naming convention. And yeah, I know you can order and put favorites and all that kind of stuff, but just we're thinking out loud here and trying to cut it off at the pass before we're up the creek without a paddle.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Understand.
to add on to what Marvin's saying is that, I mean, we here at the university, we have all kinds of like academic departments and employment type, just staff type about HR, finance, campus solutions, foundation. Each of those are going to have their own workflow type projects associated with them. And if we just have basically there's no way to like group projects together with this. Like with the old structure with the files, you could put everything under a file folder, folder that is, and then each one of those subfolders could be its own project. You see, so then you could collapse all your projects and make your design suite a lot cleaner. And there's no way that looks like to do that with projects. You can't like put projects in a category or in a like a subfolder, however you want to describe that. They're just categories. They're just projects that are going to be listed on the left-hand side there. No way to group them together, common projects, so that they can be found easily.
I mean, I realize we could use tags, but then that requires a report.
Yeah.
To work through a report, so.
Right. You're just looking at something on like with this base design, how to
Yeah,
kind of keep them organized as
Yeah.
best as possible.
It might
Got
be
it.
something that you guys could think about, just so that folks can organize their projects better, instead of just having a big list of projects. I can't imagine we're the only institution that's going to go to 9 that's going to have this concern. I mean, you
Mhm.
talk about your bigger banks and things like that. They got many different departments, and they may have many different designers working in there that have access to those things. But when you start getting into production fixes and things like that, you need to be able to find it quickly and know where it is. And not every designer is the original designer, so they need to be able to navigate these things easier. That's kind of where we're at. It's just a matter of navigating and um, just being able to organize these things a little bit better so they're not so linear.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I'm not I'm not familiar with, a lot of the things that are coming in future updates, so I can inquire and kind of see if maybe that's kind of something they already had in mind or they've already started working on.
Mhm.
And if not, then we can also kind of ask and
Yeah,
see if that's something that they may consider adding in the future. Because you got some good points there, and I'm sure there may be other questions about this too. And if it has already been raised, maybe they already kind of have it in a plan for a future version 9 update.
yeah. Do you guys, by the way, have a ingest for stuff like that? Like if we have suggestions or thoughts about stuff that we could submit directly to the design team, just things like that. I mean, some.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have our like the two types of like tickets, right? There's the um that typically like the support team or your customer success managers would set up for you. So like
Hmm.
the support team, if you have any issues, they've got the developer tickets, right? With just like a
Right.
bug that needs fixing. The other side of that is feature requests. If
Okay.
there's
Feature
a feature
request.
that you're looking for.
Right.
Typically if you want to get that set up, just work with your customer success manager and they can help you put a feature request in to
Gotcha.
get that
Okay.
checked on.
That's what we can do then. Yeah, because
Yep.
I just think that's kind of for us, because I know the amount of projects we have in our other systems and where we're going with this. It's going to get unwieldy pretty quick within the next few years. So
Mhm.
we would really love to have a way to organize these projects.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the big thing. Right now, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot other than just knowing the naming convention. But yeah, I
Right,
think a
right.
feature request would help kind of
Yeah,
get
just
something in the
something
right
where we
direction
could
for that.
just categorize them together, like put all projects and so that and make it collapsible and stuff like that. Just nothing more than just a structure. It doesn't have to be, a specific object or whatever, just
Hmm.
structure. All right. Thanks for the
Yeah,
information.
sure, of course. Right. Take a look what we've got for our next question. All right. Smitha asked a question about specifying the path when creating a file like Excel, using decisions. So when we create like an Excel file or something, specifying a path on the decision server where this should be created. Okay. Smitha, would you like to expand a little bit, maybe at least just clarify like what what kind of
Uh,
steps you're using and stuff like that?
yeah, if we just take a simple component like a create Excel or any file format, for example, I would want this file to be created on a particular path on the decision server. So how can I do that? When I just create it, I can read when I list the directories and stuff like that, I can see that it's created somewhere. It probably, by default, for me at least, it goes to something like a workflow directory, some path like that, or decisions workflow. But I want to be able to specify the path. And that's the first question. And by default, what is the access on this? Like, is it read write, or what happens if I use my single sign-on to create a file? By default, what access will this file get? Can other users see it or not really?
I think initially, unless you're using like some specific um um uh, like unless you're specifically trying to send it to like a location, I think initially most of these like items, it's either going to create, like an output or something where it's just existing in the flow,
Mm-hmm.
or certain items where it like if you download, right, you can download it. That'll just be to like, the local version of wherever it is, right? Like if I
Correct.
created a download here, I'll download it, but no one else has access to it unless they run the flow that allows them to download it.
Correct. If we add another component to, download it to a particular path or something, I see something called a URL. So what should I specify?
I think it just depends. Like, I guess what.
Okay, now if I should be clear, this file, when we run the flow, it creates an Excel, right? So does it automatically store it into a folder, or I need to add another component to store it into a folder?
So yeah, in this particular step, for example, it has an output. So if I create like an Excel file here with whatever sheet names that I want, whatever, blah blah blah, it creates the Excel file. This is going to create an Excel file and just output the file data.
Correct.
So this is just existing in this flow. It's
Correct.
nowhere. I would need to go then add further steps to do something with it, right? Whether that's, you got like the various like FTP servers, if you have,
I
an
just
FTP
wanted,
server to send it to.
no, I want it to be on not only part of this flow, but on this server. So there should be a download component or something like that, I assume, right? Download it to the server.
Yeah, there's like various.
Download it to path. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, to download and different things like that, you'd have to like specify where you want this to go.
Correct.
Right. Download file to like all of these are typically requiring, right, some kind of like external system or something that you need to connect it to.
If I just want it on the server, what should I specify? Like if I'm running it on the server itself, right? I just want it on the server. So what should I specify?
I think the only thing that I'm not sure of that I don't know, I don't even necessarily know if you can, is if you want to just like if you want this item to get saved and specifically go to like your local instance, I think
No.
you need.
Sorry, not my local instance, on the server. When I run it.
Oh, you mean like you want to go to like decisions?
Server, yes, on the decision
Got it.
server.
I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
if you want to like save it to decisions,
Yeah.
you've got the options of saving documents or as a file reference.
Okay. What should I use?
So there's a few different things. If you want to use like your internal services steps to create those items, we
Okay.
have like items related to there's document service and file
Okay.
reference service. So the file
Okay.
reference is like a little less, it's like a little less taxing
Okay.
in some ways. So if you know if that's like the one way you can set up there, but you can actually like, save something as a file reference. And you can, there's also file reference steps in here that you can find here. Add file references to folder, for example, where you can take like a list of file references and you can add them to a folder within decisions. If you like, that's after you created a file reference. And then you've got create entity from file references step here that you would use if you need to like take a file reference and save it. We talk about this concept in one of our training projects, actually.
Oh.
Where we use in the I9 PDF training project, we actually create this. We create an I9 application, and then it takes this is, in this case, it's specifically a PDF.
Okay.
But you could still work with it here. And there's this step called load from file data.
Okay.
Which takes the file data, right? And that was the data type that we have our create Excel file
Right.
outputs, right? File data. The load from file data step will take that and it'll turn it into a file reference. And then from there, you can then create entity from file reference, which allows you to just save it. So then you can save it to decisions at a specific location. And then it's saved within the decisions instance.
Okay, so how can I get to this demo or this flow?
This is one of our training projects. So if you've have you gone through any of our training modules?
Yes, some I have gone through some.
Okay, it's the I9
data process.
the I9 one.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's I9 application. It might be just what it's called. I don't know if I have it here. This is our old version. I9 generation, I think is what it's called. That's the lesson one it's in. It should be in the UI application learning plan. I9 generation. That's where we talk about building that process and how to do the difference between documents and file references as well. So there's a video that should be there that will hopefully maybe help you decide if you think a document may be better. But then we use file references and how to save them. So then these items are actually saved in the folder in decisions. So you can utilize it in decisions as well if you would like.
Sure, this is helpful. Can you please show me that URL again where I can go to that decisions Basecamp?
Learn.decisions.com.
Okay, if you don't mind pasting that in the chat for me, the URL, the whole URL, that'll be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And I do have, this is just some things I'm not as familiar with too. If there's other things you want to think about, someone else kind of added to this that I guess if you're working with something like this, it does create a file and it will store it in a temporary folder location. So you can actually access those items as well, but it's in a temporary folder location.
Okay, that's probably what is happening in our flow because I can see that when I list it, but I cannot access it when I want to go, like when I want to do anything else with it, it says access denied. So maybe because it's a temporary location.
Yes. And then I guess the other thing that they mentioned, and I unfortunately don't know the specifics to go a little further to kind of share with you because I have not messed with this personally, but I guess you can specify the full path before your file name. So if you do
Oh,
that, if you specify like the full path of that, you can
oh,
actually, I guess, direct where that goes.
oh, okay, great. That sounds very
So you
good.
can also try that if you want to see if that'll do what you're looking for.
Okay, I'll try that. Thank you.
Mhm. And also thank you to whoever posted that. It says anonymous for me, but I appreciate the input on there.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Elon had a question in the Q&A. So Elon's question is, can you explain how to use the import Excel or CSV step? I have a form that users fill out and also upload an Excel file to. I want to validate the uploaded file has the correct columns and headers, and then create a new Excel file with the form data included. How can I achieve this? I did give you the opportunity to speak if you would like to clarify a little bit, Elon, before I start talking about any of this.
Yeah, sure. So basically, let's say I have a form with two text boxes and then a file upload area, and that where the user can upload an Excel file, and this Excel file should have the same number of columns every time, and the order of the column headers should remain the same. So I think I can use the error handling in the import Excel or CSV by column name step to validate that the file contains the correct amount of headers and columns. But I also want to be able to, if that's true, then take that data from the uploaded Excel file, create a new Excel file with that data, and then add form data like from those two text boxes into that new file. So I was wondering how I would be able to do that.
Okay. Okay, let's start with this. So, okay, so you have your import Excel CSV.
Mhm.
You know, you're adding, right, these like values to what you're expecting.
Right. I do have like a show form step in front of it though, because the
Right, because
end
it's coming
result,
from a form first.
right. And I
Right.
want to be able to add the information from those text boxes in the form to the eventual new Excel file.
Right. Got it. And so then your goal is to take those values and update the one that the Excel that they uploaded and upload it and add those items to that same Excel
Yes.
and then make a new one with
Yes.
the updated items. Got it. Okay. I can import this file. It'll send the item through. Done. Whatever. Okay. Okay. Well, we got a number of create Excel files. That's not quite exactly what we're looking for here. There's a number, I think, of maybe some small things, I guess, that you could do, but I think a lot of it would just, if we want to update or add things, I think a lot of it would just be about like taking the data and then, adding it to a list of data, um, and things like that. So you have stuff like this that you can, right, you can like input your Excel and then it'll output like the rows that are in that are already in the Excel. And you might be able to even like consider, like you said, exactly what like all the columns should be and everything, right?
The actual rows could be dynamic, but the column headers will always be the same and like
Right, yeah, like it's the same, like, like first name, last name, like that kind of
right,
stuff, right? Yeah.
right.
So, my initial thought would be this, and you can let me know if you kind of think that this makes sense. But like, if you know what those headers are, you can create things like a data structure, um, just like a simple flow structure, because unless if you don't want to like take that information and save it to the database, a simple flow structure is something that you would use, just to kind of hold the data, right? And you would keep it to kind of track all of your columns basically that are in that. Um, columns and stuff that you're going to be using here. So you fill it with the columns that you are expecting to use. And then you can simply, take the data that's from the original CSV, and for each of those like items in the row, you can output that data and save it or set it on that data structure. And then from there, you would want to then, also add the additional items from the form to that data structure. And then the data structure will now have like all of those items saved to it. From there, you should be able to, you know, take those and create a new Excel that will like hold all of the data. Because I don't, at least, and unless there's like a step or something that I'm missing or that I'm unaware of, I don't think there's a step that can just update necessarily like a previous Excel file like that. I think you'd have to like build around manipulating or like take the data off of this, add the new data, and then create a new one that will hold that information.
Okay.
I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, no. I was thinking that I would have to make a data structure for it, but I was trying to see if there's a way to do it without. But if I have to, then okay, I can do that.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't always want to direct you right to support. I don't know if they know of something better. Um, but like, yeah, my limited experience on, adjusting or changing like files like this, I don't think there's anything that can directly just change something like that.
Got it.
Or at least I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
Oh, I guess maybe someone is set. Hang on. Oh, okay. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the step. Okay, here we go. I think this will be more what we're looking for. Um, Set values in column or set values in rows. So if I take my, your your Excel item that got added, um, you can go ahead and take your, your file data. You can take the data from your, what you had in your form. Sorry, the form that someone inputs, right? It outputs your Excel. You should be able to set values in it, choose the file and everything like that, and then you should be able to add new. Yeah, it looks like you can add new numbers to this thing.
Okay.
So that's yeah. Ignore what I said at first. Use that if you still can't quite get this right. I think this is your process here, because then you
Okay.
should be able to take the values, the inputs from their item or from their form, and place that as like your new values, right?
Mhm.
It comes in as a list of strings, but right, you could obviously build array if you need to do single items at a time. Um, and I think, maybe need some reconfiguring depending on what exactly you're doing with it. But that I think will, um, well, hopefully, I think that definitely sounds a lot better than what I was incorrectly directing you towards.
Okay, so this step, the setting new values is for that same Excel file that we imported, right? It's not creating a new one or anything.
Yeah, it looks like it's about updating. So you choose a file that you can
Okay.
input to it, and then it'll add these new values to that file.
Okay. Well, I can spend some time experimenting with that.
Yeah, and if you need of try some things. If it's not working, you can always come back to another lunch and learn, and maybe even submit a pre-sub so that we can take a look at it too, and maybe we can help test it a little bit more.
Okay,
But
thank you.
this is definitely, I think, your first try that first and see if you can get that to work before
Okay.
jumping to creating your own data structures and manipulating the data outside of that. As long as it's just simply adding from the form directly to your Excel file.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. That applies to the questions that have been asked so far. Do we have any other additional questions or anything that we can discuss here? Oh, wait a minute. I think there's another one that I missed. Oh, Shan, you had a question. Sorry, I almost missed that. Copying an entity to a different project, but keeping the original copy at its old place. Would you care to expand on that a little bit, what you're looking for here?
Okay, my project recently migrated from the 8 to 9.
Okay.
So before I used the import export to copy from one folder to another folder, but now that doesn't work. Looks like I can only move to another project. But after I moved the that entity, for example, the flow, moved to the new project, then the old in the original place it disappeared. I want to still keep that in the old place. I just want to get a copy. And for example, I do some tests. In the test project, I want to just get a copy, then work on that test one. If it's working properly, I want to copy back.
Got it. Okay. So this is like, so you're saying you imported a project and it was in this folder, I assume, right, on import,
Yeah.
and then you had to, add it to your project. And then once you did that, it's gone. Right? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've got a couple thoughts on that. In general, you can always like you should be able to just copy items. Right? Like I can, copy any, if I have like one particular flow, you can always copy that flow.
Okay.
But the other thing is I I think once it's in a project, it's in a project. Because the way that version 9 is designed, it's meant to have everything in the project. I don't necessarily know if I can move something out of my project.
So do you suggest me I create a copy first in the original folder, then I move that copy to the another project, so I still can keep the old copy in the original place.
Yes, I think that may
Okay.
work. The other option
Okay.
too is if you have the download of the item that you imported and then exported into here and everything, you might just be able to import that item again. Right?
Okay.
Like you should just be able to go here and or not from here, but like import the item and then it should all just like appear in this folder again. And you can also specifically pick what you want to import if you only want to import one particular thing. But version 9 is designed to keep everything in these projects for organization and for the way that it uses with like code compiling and all this other stuff. It's designed to be in those projects. So that's why there isn't necessarily like a design function or like for functionality outside of it beyond what's putting in those projects. And so then when you move it to the project, that's why it disappeared from here, because it's just expecting you to utilize it in the project from now on.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. All right. Um, any other questions for today from anyone? You can raise your hand, you can post in the chats. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate everyone coming in, asking questions, and for those of you that chimed in and gave me some assistance on the questions that I wasn't as familiar with today. Thank you for that as well. That was very helpful. We will continue with the Lunch and Learns the rest of this week. We've got Greg, Rob, and Jared lined up for the rest of this week. So if you need anything, please submit some questions or join here and add your questions in the chat. As a general reminder, we have our QR codes here if you want to access or take a look at the solutions marketplace or our decision support YouTube channel where we post a number of where we post our lunch and learn videos, but also where we post a number of other training content and things. So you can go ahead and check those out if you would like. Otherwise, thank you all for joining, and we will see you all tomorrow. Have a good one.